So, as has become somewhat customary in our four times doing this, I'll start by reading a letter of the Rebbe that I came across in this fine sefer called In Good Hands that I think it spoke to me, and it speaks to kind of... What's that? The book? They're selling it for a discount? How much are you selling it for?
I don't know what.
Nice. Baruch Hashem. It's a great book.
We need it now.
So, just a very straightforward short letter that the Rebbe wrote in 1951. We've spoken a number of times, and I've made the point to repeat that it's amazing how the Rebbe pushed this idea of learning Chayvus Levavos Shaar Habitachon almost from the get-go, and especially to those who were coming out of the Holocaust right when he took over the leadership, and these were people that really had what to struggle with. They experienced all types of horrors, whether individually or in their family or just being around. We have been around for 2 weeks since Hamas did what they did in Israel, and it's hard to breathe. Imagine, God forbid, what the people coming out of the Holocaust must have felt as far as God and where they fit in the scheme of things and how bad things happen to good people. So the Rebbe writes as following: Greetings and blessings. Just now I dispatched a telegram to you, and I'm most surprised at your low spirits. You should follow the directives of 2 medical specialists and muster the strength in your trust in God, who will no doubt restore your former health. With blessings for a speedy recovery, my signature. Please people study and study. But when it comes to practical application, where is the trust? You should study 3 or 4 times over Shaar Habitachon and Chayvus Levavos. And it goes without saying that I do not mean that you should study it all at once, but in the course of a few weeks. With blessings for a speedy recovery and awaiting good news of your physical and spiritual health. And the Rebbe's signature, this is from 15th Menachem of 1951. So quite immediately he was pushing this sefer, and pretty strong words, not even once, not twice, but multiple times to learn it. So I heard a story. I was Googling, Bitachon and war to kind of see what's available, because it's not necessarily talked about specifically that I remember in the book. And I came across a story that was not really connected, but it was a great story by Rabbi Biederman. If you've heard the story, I don't know, but I thought it was fascinating. And it was about there was a guy that lived in Israel, and his daughter got engaged to be married. And he planned a trip, like many who live in Israel do, to travel to New York and go through the fundraising. They go to different shuls and raise money for the wedding costs in Israel. Sometimes you're in a shul, especially in New York, and people will come over to you and tell you they're wedding, give them a few dollars, and it's a whole business. The people that need it, there's drivers that will pick them up in the morning. They pay them a certain commission. They know which shuls to go to. They know where the spots are, who the houses are, and these people are able to pay for different things. Fundraising for a wedding is one of them. So this guy, his name is Rabbi Berkowitz, I believe. His daughter gets engaged. He makes the trip. He flies to New York. He makes plans with the driver to pick him up early in the morning. He's going to pick him up from the Munkacher shul. I guess it was the earliest minyan that he was going to start at. Driver doesn't show. He's there to raise money. The guy doesn't show up. He tries to call the number. The guy's not picking up. The guy doesn't know what to do. So clearly, he wasn't a man of tremendous means. If he was, he wouldn't have traveled from Israel to New York to raise money for his daughter's wedding. So most people, at least I would have probably been pretty ticked off and all stressed out. And here I already had problems as it was, and now I'm in New York. I flew all the way here. And this driver totally ditched me, and what am I supposed to do? I'm losing precious time to go fundraise money as the time goes by. But he was very relaxed, and he decided he's in shul. What's he going to do? He's going to say Tillim. So he sits down, and he starts to say Tillim. A guy walks over to him after a few minutes and says, you're saying Tillim? I need you to say Tillim. Say Tillim for me. Here's my name. And he gives him $500. He goes, and this is for just sit here and don't move until you say the Tillim. So he's like, okay, no problem. He's like, give me your phone number. I'm going to call you later. guy tells the guy, he goes, you don't have to give my phone, I'm not moving from here. I'm here, I'm saying Tehillim. This is what I'm doing today. He goes, okay. And the guy runs out. And the guy thinks, okay, I mean, $500 is nice. It's obviously not going to pay for a wedding, but he continues to say Tehillim. X amount of hours later, he's still there. Driver never showed up. And this guy comes back and he tells him, a crazy thing just happened. He says, what happened? He says, well, I had a court case today. And when I saw you this morning, I had a big problem. My lawyer, who's a defense attorney, couldn't get a hold of the guy. Wasn't picking up my phone call, nothing. Could not get the guy on the phone. And I was freaking out. So I saw you in shul, and I knew that I said, here's some money, say Tehillim. And I went to the court, and you know, when you come to a case, especially one that's of significance, it doesn't show well, he's explaining to the Israeli guy, to show up without an attorney. It's almost like a mockery on the court, you know, like you're not taking this seriously, you don't have representation. You know, it's one thing if you can't afford one, but just to show up, I'm representing myself. Because, well, what am I supposed to do? My whole case is prepared with my attorney. It's a serious case. The guy's not picking up the phone, so I head to the court. And because I go in front of the judge, and he's like, attorney, he's like, I'm here, Your Honor, to state my case. And the judge says to me, wow, you must really be confident in your case. And he listens to everything the guy says, and he rules in favor of the guy. Rules in favor of the guy. So the guy comes back and he's like, you have to understand something. In this type of case, the best thing we were looking to, best chance, and certainly not today, was some sort of settlement agreement. Like, I'll give, you give, we'll come together, we'll figure it out. It's just unheard of. And the guy's like, ah. Anyways, he says, thank you so much. And he takes out an envelope and he says, here's $5,000. It's for my lawyer fee. So you said, tell him, okay. So he says, now tell me, who are you? What are you doing here? Like, he didn't even get that far in the conversation. And if I'm misquoting this story, I didn't give my full disclaimer, but I apologize. It's the tachlis of it that matters. And the guy says, well, my daughter got engaged. I flew from Israel. This morning, my driver disappeared. So I said, tell him. And then you walked over to me and you said, stay here. I had nowhere else to go. And that's the story. The guy's, oh, you're here for your daughter's wedding. Amazing. He asks him for the information of this guy's of the guys, you know, when he gets back to Israel. Meanwhile, later, I guess the story continues because the guy ends up coming to Israel later or sending more money for the wedding later. But the lawyer calls up and says, I've been practicing for 40 years. I've never slept in my life. I don't know what to tell you. I'm so sorry. And he goes on to tell the lawyer what happened. And the lawyer thinks he's lying. And he gets in the transcript, and the lawyer never heard of such a thing, that a case gets thrown out like this. It doesn't make any sense. In New York, it just doesn't happen. So, certainly not because he didn't have a lawyer. The driver calls, and he says to the other guy, I'm so sorry, I forgot of this or that, the other thing. He's like, how about tomorrow we go around? He goes, no problem, tomorrow they go around. Anyways, the guy ends up sending the guy for his wedding another $5,000 the day of the wedding. So this guy ends up, I guess $10,000 is enough for the wedding in Israel, and he makes a wedding. This guy's case gets thrown out. And in the story, Rabbi Biederman does quote the actual names of where they're from. He's very into making sure that the stories are traceable, and it's just a fascinating story of bitachon. This guy should have been completely broken because he flew to New York to raise money for his daughter, and ultimately everything going wrong is exactly what needed. In fact, it was easier for him to raise the money. And the other guy, same thing. His whole court case got thrown out because his lawyer was a shlemazel. So just an interesting story that I heard. And I guess when you're working on your bitachon, you always daven and pray that you should be able to see it come to fruition, as clear as that story. Of course, not always does it, but it's nice to hear a story once in a while that reminds you that it is tangible, it does work, there is something to it, and it's not easy, but you can get there. So, with that being said, so we're going to continue inside the Sefer, and what we're in the middle of doing is we are we're still in the introduction, actually. We're on page 22. We're still in the introduction, and we've been talking about the 10 different ways that the alchemist, whom is we referenced as the money printer, the guy who can turn metals into gold, who seemingly should have no problems, how he is, when you compare him to someone who puts his trust in God, how that is an advantage over the guy who can print money. And what's interesting is we're not actually explaining how to get there. We're still talking about, which is very much the style of the author, of laying out what's going to happen and what you're going to realize as you go through the book. So he's just discussing now what's going to be once we learn how to have bitachon. You know, what you can expect and what's some of the qualities that you'll walk away with. And we actually have not started to really break down how you do it. It's more of the results. What's that?
Thanks.
So,
Appreciative.
no worries.
Bad for viewership, man.
And then we're going to end it. We'll end the introduction, and next week we'll start the first chapter. It's literally all talking about what will happen once you have bitachon, what kind of lifestyle you can expect. So we are in, I think we're in the 9th way, if I'm not mistaken, if anybody remembers differently. Yeah? Okay. So as always, I'm not going to try to out-translate the translation. I'm going to read it in English. I'll highlight some of the notes on the bottom that caught my attention, and I definitely don't think I do it justice, so do it again on your own for sure. So the 9th manner in which the person who has bitachon is superior to the alchemist. The alchemist's alchemy will not accompany him to the end of his days in the world to come. Even in this world, he will gain nothing other than freedom from poverty and from reliance on other people. Conversely, a person who trusts in God finds that the reward for his trust will accompany him both in this world and the world to come. As it says in Tehillim, but one who trusts in Hashem, kindness will encompass him. This is a very famous pasuk, at least I'm sure you've heard it and seen it, and it's in 1.5 million songs. Is that you put your trust in Hashem and kindness will surround you. It also says in Tehillim, how abundant is your goodness that you have hidden for those who fear you. The pasuk continues with the words of, you have acted for those who take refuge in you, from which we see that the pasuk is specifically referring to a person who has bitachon and relying on Hashem. So, quite simply put, is having the ability to print money is helpful kind of in this world, but it certainly does nothing for you and your greater objectives as a Jew and we're in the world to come, etc. Whereas putting trust in Hashem doesn't only give you a better quality of life for the other 8 reasons we've already listed before, but it also helps for the bottom line, which is for Olam Haba, etc. The 10th manner in which a person who has bitachon is superior to the alchemist. If the secret cause of the alchemist's wealth becomes known to others, it will be the cause of his death, because his efforts and labor are contrary to the rules of nature. Therefore, God, who controls everything, will cause a ruler to rule over the alchemist and kill him, if the alchemist is unable to conceal his secret. Conversely, a person who trusts in Hashem, when his trust in Hashem is publicly revealed, he will become greater in the eyes of the creations, and people will honor him. Those people will be blessed due to the proximity to him, or even at the mere sight of him, and he will be the cause for improvements in his city. Additionally, the person who has bitachon will also push away harm from other people, from the people of his place of living. The author will now quote a pasuk as support for his first point, that the person who has bitachon will be the cause for improvements in the city, followed by an anecdote as support for the second point, that a righteous person has the ability to stop harm from befalling the people of a city. As it says in Mishlei, the righteous is the foundation of the world, and as we see the story of Lot and Zayar. So, the notes on the bottom is that obviously, well, before we go to the notes, obviously the meaning here is quite simple, is if you're printing money and breaking the law, you're going against what's supposed to be, you're going to get caught, you're going to go to prison, you're going to get shot, you're done. Whereas by putting your bitachon in Hashem, it's not only is it not illegal, it's highly encouraged. And it's a beautiful trait to bring upon yourself. And it says in the bottom that as far as it'll help the people in the city, this is a footnote on the bottom of 24. As the Talmud says, every day there's a heavenly voice that announces, the whole world receives its sustenance in order that and because of my son Reb Chanina ben Doisa should have sustenance. So the Baal Shem Tov explains this passage as follows: the Talmudic word for in order is bishvil, which can also be translated as pathway or conduit. Accordingly, the Talmud is saying that the whole world is receiving its sustenance through the conduit and pathway of sustenance of Reb Chanina has created. So again, highlighting this point that by having bitachon you can bring a lot of good to your community as well and to those around you. And as far as what we're referring to with light, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that it says right here, God had originally decreed that Zaire be destroyed along with Sodom, yet God saved it because Lot chose to settle there. So Lot, actually, who was no great sheikhs, brought merit to the area because he chose to live there. So there's two examples of how having bitachon can not only have the opposite effect of what happens to the money printer, but it can help. So now he's going to go on to list practical advantages of having bitachon, what you can expect. This is the join the gym, lose 50 pounds, whatever you're sold when you have the infomercials and you sold on a product that you want to see what it's going to do to your life. This is now he's going to tell us what we're going to get by the time we're finished this. So first is financial satisfaction. Having finished enumerating the 10 ways in which a person who has bitachon is superior to the alchemist, the author continues with the other Torah advantages to having bitachon. So among the advantages of bitachon with regard to Torah observance, that a person who places his trust in God will utilize his finances correctly. This applies to both rich and poor people who have bitachon. For if he has money, he will hurry to fulfill his obligations to God, such as buying kosher tefillin, tzitzis, extra food for Shabbos, and the like, as well as fulfilling his obligations to other people, such as fulfilling the mitzvah of charity, giving out a loan to those in need, and so on. He will do so willingly and generously. So if he's blessed with abundance and he has trust in Hashem, he's going to go and accomplish everything to the utmost degree. He'll spend the money on the best pair of tefillin. People need charity. He's writing checks because he's got trust in Hashem. He's not worried about what will be tomorrow and whether or not I'm going to have enough or not have enough. And the opposite of that, if he has trust and he's broke, he has no money, then he'll pay attention to the fact that the lack of money is actually a kindness from a God upon him. Why? How is that so? This is because as a result of lacking money, he's relieved of the obligation to Hashem and to other people which would have been incumbent upon him due to his money. So he'll say there with peace of mind, you know what, thank God, I'm broke. I can't be busy giving loans. I can't be busy writing checks to charity. I can't buy the best tefillin that's out there because I got no money anyways. So I'm going to focus my attention on other things. Not such a bad deal. I mean, let me rephrase it. Not the one I'm looking for, but I guess from that perspective, if you have bitachon, he's positive. He also has fewer worries about guarding the money and taking care of it. If you don't have a big business, you're not worried about it. If you have no money, you don't have to worry about losing it. So he's got a pretty peaceful life. As has been said regarding, what's that? Oh. As has been said regarding one of the pious men, that he would say, may God save me from the scattering of the mind. And they asked him, what is the scattering of the mind? And he answered, were I to have money at the port of each river and to the heights of each city. So a man who is wealthy often has possessions in many locations, and as a result his thoughts are scattered in different places, which is referred to as a scattering of the mind. And this is the top of page 27, what the sages of blessed memory meant when they said in Pirkei Avos, the more possessions, the more worry. And when they also said in Pirkei Avos, who is truly wealthy? A person who is content with his lot.
That's where Mo Money, Mo Problems came from?
Absolutely, that's the original source of the song. Yep. Happens to be, it's a well-known thing that Puff Daddy used to learn Pirkei Avos. Yes, everyone knows that. A person who trusts in God. Well, listen, Biggie grew up near Crown Heights. What do you think? There was he actually grew in Crown Heights, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah?
Yeah. You don't know this? Does anybody know who the B.I.G. is that live in Crown Heights?
Notorious B.I.G.
Videos of him on Nostrand Avenue.
Yeah, Nostrand, Bedford. He was a Crown Heights boy.
I didn't see him in 770.
I don't know about that, but he was...
Right outside.
So a person who trusts in God will receive all the benefits of the money, and I mean to say the benefits of his parnasa, while the disturbing thoughts of a wealthy person and his constant worry will be withheld from him. As the wise man Shlomo HaMelech said in Ecclesiastes, Koheles, is the sleep of the laborer is sweet, whether he eats little or much, but the satiety of the rich does not allow him to sleep. So the fourth Torah benefit, in contrast to a person who does not have bitachon, is the person who does will utilize his financial situation, whether he's rich or poor, to further his service of Hashem, while the person who lacks bitachon will constantly be stressed and unable to serve God properly. So he knows how to be happy with his lot because he's got strong bitachon. The next thing is financial responsibility. Among the Torah benefits of bitachon is that the money of the person who trusts in God will not disturb him from trusting in him, and neither his wealth nor lack of it a cause for him to sin. It's interesting that all of these are, he's shining a light of the Torah benefit, of the spiritual benefit, of the physical, of the spiritual outcome of the physical reality that you're living. He's not even talking yet about just the physical outcome of it. He's looking at it through the light of being an observant Jew or a Torah Jew, how it might play itself out. So among the Torah benefits of bitachon is that the money of the person who trusts in God will not disturb him from trusting in him, and neither his wealth nor lack of it cause for him to sin. This is because he will not rely on his money. Rather, he considers it as a deposit, which he has been instructed to use in a certain way and for certain purposes for a designated amount of time. If his wealth continues to remain with him, he will not rebel as a result of it, nor will he remind the one whom he has been instructed to be kind to of his kindness, nor will he ask to be repaid for his kindness, nor will he ask to be thanked or praised. Instead, he will thank his Creator, may he be blessed, who put him in this position to be the means for the goodness of the recipient. A person who trusts in Hashem does not consider his money to be his. Rather, he sees it as God's money, which has been placed in his care. Therefore, he will not take credit or ask for appreciation when he uses his money to help others. Instead, he will thank God for being chosen to have the opportunity to help those in need. And this doesn't mean, by the way, that he has to take 100% of his money and use it for these things. Because part of tzedakah is that you give 10% at a minimum, and you're not supposed to give more than a fifth, which is 20%, as a general rule. So if he's wealthy, 20 cents of the dollar is going towards charity. He's still enjoying 80 cents of his dollars are for his lifestyle, or for his, if he wants to give more charity, he can. But it's not to say that the person is completely doing nothing but but charity. It's that he's very comfortable with where he is and what his situation is. And many times, I think we've all seen it. There's a certain when someone gives charity, it can either be from a place of I'm doing you a favor, or let me rephrase that. If you've been the recipient of anything, and later he talks about if you've received a paycheck, it's very easy to very quickly feel a certain sense of gratitude to the person who's giving you whatever they're giving you, whether it's a donation, charity, a loan, or a paycheck. And you want to give thanks. Now, there's an idea of giving thanks, and he talks about that later in the book as well. But on the flip side, that person very easily can get lost in that story. Then because of me, you're getting a paycheck. Because of me, you'll be able to pay your bills for this loan I've given you. Because of me, you'll have the donation that you were looking for. Because of me. And it's very, it's a powerful idea to consider it that it's not because of you. Happens to be that God gave you money, and He's given you an opportunity to be the distributor of the capital that He wanted to get to that source. So if you're giving it a loan, it's not that you are giving the loans. Hashem wants to give the loan to this certain guy, and He chose you to be the conduit. And it's an interesting, frame of mind, both for the recipient and for the giver, to remember that it's not you. You're not receiving from Him, and He's not giving from Himself. It's all from Hashem. So it's a pretty humbling thought process when you think about it that way. Is that you're not giving a guy business. I've thought of myself. It's like I'm giving him business. I'm not giving him business. Hashem is giving him business. The fact that He's giving him business through you is because Hashem chose it to be that way. But I'm not giving him business. That's a really it's the wrong mindset. It's easier said than done. But if you can think that way, it's a much more altruistic. Is that altruistic the right word in this sense? Altruistic perspective. Even if he loses his money, what are you laughing? Like my choice of words, or? Oh, that's my boy. Even if he loses his money, he will not worry, nor will he mourn its loss. Instead, he will thank Hashem for taking the deposit away from him, just as he thanked for him when he got the deposit in the first place. He will rejoice with his portion, will not seek that others be financially harmed, and will not be desirous of other people's money. As the wise man Shlomo HaMelech said, a righteous man eats to sate his appetite. So, I think this is you've seen people who lose their money and then they pull down everybody with them. It's a common thing. Unfortunately, someone's going through a hard time, they'll do things that are maybe unscrupulous, or because it's survival and they need to just do what they need to do to survive, and they're destroying those around them because what should I do? It is what it is. They don't have a sense of understanding that it's all from Hashem, and doing that's not going to help. It's like a burning ship. They just grab everything to burn it with it. And it's a massive challenge, and it's not to judge anyone that does that. It's a real thing. He's saying that clearly this is a way to avoid that. And the bottom, the note on page 28, even if he loses his money, so God tests man in two ways: the test of poverty and the test of wealth. I think we spoke about this last week briefly. Shlomo HaMelech asked of God to be tested with neither. Give me neither poverty nor riches, just feed my allotted bread. For perhaps I will be overly satiated and deny you, saying, who's God? Or I might become poor and feel like I have no other choice and steal and swear in the name of my God. So, nevertheless, if we were to be tested, the test of wealth would be obviously easier and more rewarding. Therefore, we must ask for the test of wealth and use it properly. This explains why Shlomo HaMelech first asks that he not be tested with poverty, because if a man needs to be tested, his first request is that it not be the test of poverty, which is more difficult and causes more pain and stress. As our sages teach, poverty makes a man lose his mind and rebel against the will of Hashem. So obviously, being wealthy is what we should all strive for, and if we're going to be tested, let it be with how to not think that we're giving him money or we're giving him the loan. Let that be all of our mutual big tests in bitachon, as opposed to, oh my God, how am I paying for my kid's meal tomorrow? Top of page 29, material benefits. So now we've talked about all these benefits that are seen through the spiritual lens. It helps you to be more relaxed. It helps you to be more relaxed in your service of Hashem, whether it's giving charity or buying nice tefillin. Now let's talk about the material benefits. So up until this point, the author has been listing the Torah advantages of bitachon. In the remainder of his introduction, remember this is still an introduction, it's quite the introduction, he will discuss the advantages that bitachon brings to a person in his materialistic pursuits. The benefits of bitachon in worldly matters are as follows. 1. Stress-free. Among them is the peace of mind from the worries of this world, tranquility from the nagging of the spirit and its pain, which is due to the person's lack of obtaining his physical desires. A person who does not have bitachon is never at peace. He always feels that he's missing something. But a person who has bitachon is at rest. He feels secure and peace of this world, as it says in Yirmiyahu, the very famous line that we say in benching all the time, Baruch HaGever Asher Yiftach B'Adonai V'Haya Adonai Miftachai. Blessed is the man who trusts in the Lord shall be his trust. And as the following pasuk says, for he shall be like a tree planted by the water and by a rivulet spread by its roots. These psukim are cited as proof that a person who has bitachon is at peace and is neither afraid nor worried, even when bad befalls him, because he knows he's being taken care of. So bottom line is, forget about whether or not you're going to be thankful that you do have the ability to help others, or you don't have the ability to help others, so you're thanking him for not having the stress. Bottom line is, it'll give you a stress-free existence because you trust in God, you trust that he's going to take care of you. So whether it seems to be good, it seems not to be good, you're going to go to sleep that night because you know Hashem is taking care of you. Bottom line, lower blood pressure, less reason to go to the chiropractor, more reasons to smile, less gray hair, etc. And as my back hurts me and my hair is white at the young age of 39, you can clearly see I struggle. Immunity from the fatigue of traveling. This is an interesting one. Another advantage of bitachon as it affects a person in his material pursuits. Among the worldly benefits is that having bitachon creates in the person the peace of mind that comes from not needing to travel long distances. Such travel can destroy people's bodies and hasten death due to the excessive motion and change of climate involved. What's that? Well, yes, this is 1,000 years ago, so travel is, but I think all of us who may travel for business can also attest that it takes a serious toll, and then it can take a toll, even if it's not physically a toll, it can take a toll on your marriage, it can take a toll with your children, it can take a toll on your sanity. It's just sleeping in your bed every night. It's not just a saying. It's a good thing. It's important. It's grounding, etc. So the author quotes a pasuk that supports this notion that excessive travel can cause a person to lose strength and hasten his death, as it says in Tehillim, "He has afflicted my strength on the way, and he has shortened my days." And the author will relate a tale to make his point, as has been related regarding an ascetic's path to asceticism, which in the Hebrew, the word is prushim, which I don't know what prushim. Anyone have a better translation for prushim than aesthetic? Because I don't think it's a great translation.
Literally means separate.
So I guess someone that's trying to be, live above it all. Somebody have Google. Let's just look for us. What's it called? A cinnamon? What do we call it? A cinnamon. I can't believe I'm questioning the translation. I said I wouldn't, but I just don't know what it means. So. I mean, I know what it means in this context, but let's look for a better word.
Define asceticism.
The definition he has, he wants another word.
No, I want to like what's I know that I want to like
Severe self-discipline and avoidance of all forms of indulgence, typically for religious reasons.
Okay, great. Done. Got it. So he tells the story of said individual who was looking to separate himself from all indulgences for the religious purpose as follows. He went to a faraway land, it's actually a great story, to seek his sustenance during the beginning of his asceticism. During his travels, he met a star worshiper in a city where he had arrived. So he met an astronomer or maybe a psychic. And the ascetic told the star worshiper, "How much are you in a state of ultimate blindness and lack of understanding in your service of the stars?" Basically, he started to beat down on this guy, this idol worshiper. So the idol worshiper replies, "And whom exactly do you serve?" So he replied, "I serve the Creator, who's able to do anything, who sustains, who is one, who provides food for each person according to his needs, and there is no one like him." So the idol worshiper says to him, with a sarcastic smirk, he doesn't write that, but I'm imagining it if I was making a movie, you agree? It would be like a sarcastic smirk. And he goes, "Good sir, your actions contradict your words." "How so?" says the ascetic. He goes, the idol worshiper replies, "If what you said were to be true, then God would provide for you in your city, just as he provided for you until now. And you, my dear friend, would not need to bother yourself to come all the way to my town to find cash." With this, the argument of the ascetic was shut down. Consequently, he returned to his land, accepted upon himself to be an ascetic, and from that time on, never left his city again. So, booyah, burn, bam. Here the idol worshiper tells the guy, if you really believed anything you were saying, you'd be back in Parkland, sitting on Parkside, doing what you need to do, as opposed to have traveled all the way here. And then while you're here, you're trying to knock me. Dude, maybe you don't have it so figured out. And the guy left. So, interesting little side note here. With the argument of the ascetic was shut down, the commentary in the bottom of 30, Rabbi Yaakov Emden argues that there are valid reasons that cause a person's inability to find a livelihood in his place of dwelling, which does require him to travel, because obviously it's a good question. I mean, I travel all the time for business. Why do I travel? Maybe I should just try to make that keli here. And Rabbi Emden writes that this was in fact his own situation. And it was not due to a lack of trust in God. Rather, it was the will of God that he traveled to earn his parnasa. He continues that it is also the advice of our sages in the Gemara, that a person who does not find substance in one city should travel to another. The travel can be for one of three reasons. One, the person does not merit to find his parnasa in his hometown, and he has to travel to provide himself because of his sins, because exile brings forgiveness. Two, God causes a person to travel so that he won't be around the evil people of his town. He'll keep him out of trouble. Three, is the need to travel might simply be a test from God to see if his belief is non-wavering despite the hardship. Rabbi Emden points out that many of the Jewish sages and even the forefathers traveled for their survival. The Baal Shem Tov teaches that Hashgacha Pratis, divine providence, leads a person to a certain place. He explains the pasuk, "And you will go to that place that the Lord your God will choose to make his name dwell there," as follows. "You must know that you go from one place to another because Hashem has chosen this path, so that his name will dwell there. God orchestrates that you end up in this specific place in order to spread the light of God in that very place." This is from Hayom Yom of Chai Elul. And Rabbi Emden concludes with a simple question. If indeed God orchestrates that a person needs to travel for his business, then why did the ascetic not know what to respond to the idol worshiper? His answer is the reason why the ascetic returned home was his realization that traveling caused him to be near bad people, like the idol worshiper. So the ascetic did not even respond to the idol worshiper because he did not want to even waste time in dialogue. So God bless Rabbi Emden. Rabbi Yaakov Emden basically is looking for the qualities of this fine man who was burned by the idol worshiper. Okay, next advantage: harm-free employment. It's a hazard-free environment. Among the material benefits is that Bitachon instills in a person a peace of mind and body that comes from not needing to perform difficult work nor engage in occupations that tire the body. He will also be at peace due to the inability to abandon the service of kings. Due to the ability to abandon the service of kings and their laws and to avoid the corruption of their servants. A person who trusts in Hashem chooses those means of sustenance for himself that entail greater rest for his body, give him a good name, and leave his heart free from worry. He also chooses these occupations that are more helpful for his Torah observance. All this is due to his strong belief that the means of sustenance will not add to his amount of sustenance, nor will it cause him to lack anything. His amounts of sustenance will only be increased or decreased by the decree of God. May he be blessed. So harm-free employment basically is that he's not going to do anything that he's not going to push his limits in any which way, whether it's physical labor or just overworking at the office, because he knows that he has trust in Hashem. Hashem will give him what he's supposed to. He can't increase or decrease any of his earnings by doing something. It reminds me of a story I had. I had a little building I bought in Miami, and we were doing construction to fix this building. It has apartments to rent apartments. And I hired a friend of mine to do the construction, and it was really behind. His laborers weren't showing up on time. Anyways, I call him up and I'm like, listen, you're killing me. Got to get this thing ready. He's like, fine, I'm going to go tomorrow. I'm going to do the work. Don't worry about it. I got it. So I swing by during the day, and I rented the apartment and the guy was going to move in, but I needed this thing done. So I was like, fine, I'll help you. I parked my car. I got out of this thing, and I'm not built for construction in any way, shape, or form. I certainly am not able to do construction, but I'm helping my friend out. And my friend's a GC. This is what he does for a living. He's a built guy. He's got laborers. He can do it himself. This is what he does. Anyways, I'm holding, maybe 5 minutes into it, I'm holding something up, not aluminum, a metal gate with those, like the spikes, falls on my back and cuts my back. Thank God it was nothing crazy, but I got really hurt and I had to stop. And I had to go home, and I may even have a little scar there still. It was a pain for a few days, but it was and I don't know if I was learning this with my wife at the time, or I caught on it later, but it was such a great example of stop it. You're not going to change anything because now you're becoming a contractor. That's not how it works. If the apartment's supposed to be finished, you hired a contractor, that's what you do. He doesn't work out, fine, hire another contractor. Don't think that you're going to change the plan because you Shmendrik are going to try to fix the apartment. Just get back in your car and go home and say Kapitel Telem or something. So it's just a real live experience that happened to me. So I definitely put myself in harm's way.
The thing that came to mind when you were talking about this as well is just how Jews often get into different professions that are different than the society around them. In Germany and pre-Holocaust, Jews became the bankers, and they obviously have a different set of values that cause them to, in some ways, do things other than general society is doing. And so it's just interesting how it kind of leads us to these different places as well, and puts us in these different positions, and then ultimately, in some ways, we did the jobs, we were doing the jobs that a lot of people didn't want, that ultimately we became the merchants, and because we were pushed out of other things, and also because of our values, it's just interesting how it kind of leads us to do certain things versus other things, and then ultimately, with God's help, almost in a sense, get into positions of power, we became the bankers or whatever.
You think because we have the mindset of trying something or not being...
not doing the physical labor in some sense.
Oh, I got you.
There's different things that we do.
We use our head.
We're prioritizing.
Listen, you're a pretty tall guy, but the rest of us, 5'5" Jews that, a little overweight, can hardly, schlep, weed, chalent. Yeah, no, I get you. It's a good point. We sit behind desks. It's a very valid point. So, there's a footnote on the bottom of 32 where it says, helpful for his Torah obligation. So he's saying that by having bitachon, you also will do things that are going to help in keeping the Torah. So it says in the middle of that paragraph, the Lubavitcher Rebbe wrote in a letter in response to your question if you should return to a city that has no minyan for work. I wrote all the above because I do not know the degree of your bitachon. However, if you are strong in this respect with simple faith, and you seek just a vessel for livelihood, God will grant you your livelihood in a place where there is a minyan, etc., and you will be able to carry out all your obligations. So just nice advice from the Rebbe to somebody, saying, listen, if you think you have to go to another town, okay, go to another town. But if you got it all together, stick at home, daven with the minyan, and you'll be fine. But obviously the Rebbe counters it with it's based on your bitachon. If you have it, you don't have to run around. If you don't have it, maybe I don't know. I'm just I'm putting words into the Rebbe's mouth, but I'm just saying. Second note is
Motion for the
exactly 7:30 in the morning, 6:30. Sorry. The second note that caught my attention is at the end of that paragraph. He says, "Decreased by the decree of God, may He be blessed." So the person knows that his sustenance will not be increased or decreased. So it's the second paragraph in 32 on the right side in the middle. Even with the greatest toil, this is from Hayom Yom, I believe. Yep. A person cannot earn 1 cent more than what Hashem has ordained. A person must do what's necessary, and he must remember that all of our work are only of secondary importance. Of primary importance is God's blessing. The blessings are earned by acting in an appropriate way for a Jew, praying with a minyan, keeping Shabbos and Kashrus vigilantly, educating his children under the guidance of God-fearing teachers. Hayom Yom from Daled of. So on top of 32, we're in the little paragraph on the bottom of the text. This being the case, he doesn't feel the need to choose a stressful job. Instead, he chooses a job that involves little stress and is conducive to his observance of mitzvahs. The author will now cite a pasuk as proof that a person does not become wealthy through traveling. Rather, it's God who causes people to be rich and poor. As it says in Tehillim, for it's not from the east or from the west, nor from the desert that elevation comes. Rather, God judges, He humbles this one and elevates that one. Likewise, it says in Tehillim, He causes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. Next item is no distress. Among the material benefits is that a person who has bitachon will have less anguish in business. If, for example, he can't sell his merchandise, or if he's not able to collect the debt that's owed to him, or if he becomes physically ill, naturally a person will become upset or even angry if any of these things happen. Nevertheless, a person who has bitachon will not let these things upset him. This is because he knows that HaKadosh Baruch Hu repairs his matters better than he can, and chooses what's good for him better than what he would choose for himself. As it says in Tehillim, only to God should you hope, my soul, for my hope is from Him, which is a great Chabad nigun. Ach lelehim doimi nafshi kimeni sikvasi. God knows what's the best for a person, and as such, a person's hope should be placed only in God. So simply put, is that I think everybody probably has experienced some sort of seemingly upset in something. I remember when I was, I'm actually kind of going through it right now also, but in between 2005 and 2008, I was in real estate at the time. The company I was working for, and I was leading acquisitions, we probably made 100 offers on buildings, and we won none of them. We had one successful project that I was working on, and then I couldn't find another project, couldn't actually buy it, nothing. And it was so upsetting, because business was great, and I knew what I was doing, and we had the capital, but I couldn't close a deal. And of course, in 2008, every deal that we would have bought, even one of them, tanked. Every single company that bought those deals. It was the good old days of condo conversions and condos. People were flipping condos before the condo even came on the market. So later, it was hindsight's 2020. It was one of those classic examples of you don't know. There's many stories of people who have. Certainly, I've heard with the Rebbe, and I think it was with some material that somebody had. It may have been with the Deutsches, with plastic or material, something that they couldn't get rid of, and I might be confusing stories, but again, they kept it and they were able to sell it at a later date for a much larger profit than initially they would have been able to sell it for if they sold it at the time that they were looking to get rid of it. I think it was Deutsch, if not, it was somebody. But the point is, hindsight's 2020, so if you can remember that with foresight, then you'll be in good shape.
When did you start learning Shaar Habitachon, by the way?
Like regularly, or my first time ever?
I guess, when did you start, like, infusing it into your life?
What year did Trump become president? 16? So probably 2014, 15? 2014, probably? 2015? It's almost 10 years. Because I have a very strong memory of learning. I don't know why, but I just...
That was your Habitachon was focused on Trump winning?
Not at all. Not at all. But I mean, not that I have anything against Trump. Not that I had anything against Trump back then. Today's another story. But no, about 2014, 2015, I was learning on it every day, every morning. Always happy, top of 34. So, in addition to refusing to get upset when things do not go as planned, a person who has bitachon can actually rejoice with whatever comes his way. It's like those, it's like a stoner. You ever meet a stoner? They're always just like chilling. So this is like the natural chillage. Among the material benefits is that a person who has bitachon is happy. I guess I shouldn't say a stoner. I should say, Yankee, when you learn to breathe, as I'm learning, you're also kind of always happy. So I take that back. No offense to all of my stoner friends. This is not a judgment. What's that? Among the material benefits is that a person who has bitachon is happy with whatever is forced upon him, even if it's difficult and against his nature. He's able to be happy because of his trust in God that He will only do to him which is good for him in all matters, just as a caring mother does for her newborn child, which she washes, diapers, swaddles, and unswaddles him, even if it's against the newborn's will. In the same manner that a mother occasionally does things against her child's will because it's really for the good of the child, so too God sometimes does things to a person that seems to him is not good and therefore against his will, but are ultimately in his best interest. You just had a daughter, so have you taken her for her shots yet?
They did another hospital.
Yeah, so that's got to be a very difficult thing to watch. You go to the pediatrician, and then, but you of course knew that as they were administering the shot, that you were doing it for the benefit of your daughter. Your daughter, as she was getting the shot, no doubt was like, what the hell is wrong with these dynamic parents of mine? But of course, it's a beautiful, simple example, but a very deep one, that as a parent, you're looking out for the best of your child, as Hashem looks out for the best of us. As David HaMelech, Olav HaShalom, said, and I don't know why he says Olav HaShalom here, I don't know that he says it every time, but it's interesting. I swear that I calmed and quieted my soul like a suckling on its mother, like a suckling was my soul with me. Basically, when a baby is feeding from its mother, it's very relaxed and calm and is not really worrying about much.
This is the idea of, of course, in secular vernacular, the idea of presence and of consciousness and of every moment is as the moment should be.
Yeah, and it's in perfection. And it's actually interesting when you think about it. He talks about it throughout many times, and he quotes David HaMelech a lot on the topic, but it really is amazing to watch a baby. A baby, first of all, is completely relaxed. Baby never worries about where its next meal will come from. It's a very interesting thing. A child never... It's just... I don't know if it knows within that it's good. It's good. Like a child is never like, hey, I better save some for later. It's like it's always secure in the fact that lunch will be there. Period. The end.
Living in the present moment.
Yeah.
There's no past and future.
It's just there. It's pretty powerful. And with that, we now are going to outline the 7 chapters that we will begin next week. So now that we've had the 30-page introduction, which again, remember, think about it, it's literally 30 pages. He wrote this book 1,000 years ago. It's pretty intense when you think about that. This entire introduction, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but did anybody feel like any part of this was unrelatable? It's
More
all
relatable than ever.
exactly. So here's what he says. The author concludes his introduction by outlining the content of the 7 chapters of Shaar Habitachon. So, since I've explained that which has occurred to me pertaining to the benefits of having trust in God and its benefits both in regard to Torah matters, worldly pursuits, I will now explain 7 matters pertaining to Bitachon. So, number 1, what is trust? 2, the causes that enable a person to trust in another. 3, to explain the prerequisites due to which a person is obligated to have trust in God, as well as to explain the obligations to engage in the means to pursue a livelihood. 4, explain the matters regarding which a person should trust in God, as well as when it's praiseworthy to have trust and when it's not. 5, the difference between how a man who has trust in God engages in the pursuit of business and how a man who does not have trust in God engages in it. 6, to explain the ways in which logic dictates that a person must criticize the opinion of those who say that people should engage in the pursuit of worldly pleasures and delay accepting upon themselves the service of Hashem until they obtain their materialistic desires, whom the author refers to as the owners of the security pledge. This is interesting. It's a whole chapter that he discusses why you ever said to yourself, hey God, listen, as soon as I hit this thing, I'm going to show, I'm going to daven, I'm going to get really serious about it, but I'm trying to get myself set up right now, you know what I'm saying? So he actually has a whole chapter, like don't make that deal with like big mistake, not the path that you want to go down. And number 7, to explain those matters that hinder a person's trust in God, and also to elaborate on all that we need to discuss regarding the matter of trust and to summarize the levels of trust. So in summary, placing trust in God brings tranquility in all areas of a person's life. It allows him to serve God with more peace and affords him an anxiety-free lifestyle. TBC. To be continued. Yeah, absolutely.